Let's take another look at animal habitats, and we'll focus on some different things today. We'll focus on things like the main idea or the big idea and the details. We're going to talk about the cause and effect. We've talked about that before. The cause is why something happened, and the effect is what happened. So we're going to take a look at cause and effect. We're also going to be taking a look at some of the things that a writer does. A writer that writes an informational text in particular has to have good knowledge about what he's writing about. So we'll take a look at the writer's knowledge, and we're also going to take a little look at character. Remember, character is the person or the animal in the story, and the author uses words to describe how the character speaks and acts and even thinks. And illustrations can also tell us about a character. So let's take another look at animal habitats. Animals need a place to live. They need safe homes. They need a place where they can raise their families. The place where an animal lives is called its habitat. Look at this furry squirrel. He lives in a nest in the tree. Squirrels like to live where they can find lots of food. What kind of food do they like? They like acorns and seeds. They bury nuts in the ground. Why? So they will have plenty of food in the cold winter months. Now, this is where I want to stop, and I want to talk about this character squirrel. All right. So in this text, we learn the characteristics of some different animals, and the author sometimes uses his actions and behaviors to describe the character. And as we read this about the squirrel, what are some of the behaviors that he has? He likes seeds and nuts. They live in a nest. They like to live where they can find their food. They bury away their food so that they have it in the cold winter months. Have you ever heard anyone use the phrase, I'm going to squirrel this away? Well, that means I'm going to put it someplace safe so that I can go enjoy it later. So when we think about a squirrel, that's one of the things that we think about really is him burying those things so that he has them for later. That's a characteristic of a squirrel. Let's go ahead and turn the page here. Something else is in the tree. Do you see the woodpecker? It is peeking out of the hole. Who made the hole in the tree? The woodpecker did. He tapped, tapped, tapped with his beak. Now the tree has a hole, but the woodpecker has a place for a nest. All right, this is a good place to talk about cause and effect. As we read about these animal habitats, we can learn about these cause and effect relationships because what happens when the woodpecker tapped with his beak? The tree got a hole, right? This is the effect. That's what happens. Why does the woodpecker make the hole? Because he needs a place for a nest. That's the cause. He needs a place for a nest, so he taps the tree. That's the cause and effect. Some animals live underground. The toad burrowed. This toad burrowed. That means it dug a hole for a home. When it rains, the toad will come out. Have you ever seen a muddy toad before? This toad looks pretty muddy. Can you guess why? Other animals burrow too. Some animals dig dens for their homes. These foxes live in a den. So does this woodchuck. Who else lives underground? Moles do. And even families of prairie dogs live underground. Is burrowing good for the ground? Worms burrow everywhere. They create tunnels that go on and on. The soil moves with the worms. It gets more water and air. It also gets more fertilizer, which is very good. So I want to talk about what happened on page 39, talking about main ideas and details. Now, what do you think the main idea is on page 39 that's all about these worms? I think it could be that worms burrow everywhere. That's probably the big idea, the main idea. And the details that support it is they create tunnels that go on, and then it talks about how it helps the soil. So I think the main idea is that worms burrow everywhere. Rabbits are little animals that live in burrows. Several rabbit families may share one burrow. They eat and sleep there. When they come out of their burrow, they like to eat. They eat flowers and they eat vegetables. That is good for the rabbit, but not for humans. Some animals live in the water. Other animals live near the water. Beavers live near streams and lakes. They are good swimmers. Trees can always be found near the beaver's home. You might see teeth marks in the trees. They belong to a beaver. He uses wood to make a lodge. Now, I think that after reading page 41 and reading about all these facts about this animal right here called the beaver, I think we have to think about what kind of knowledge the author had to be able to write an informational text, right? This author presents factual information to the reader, and he includes lots of information like beavers live near streams and lakes, they're good swimmers, they use trees to make a lodge. So, how does this information help you understand the selection? Well, it tells you more about how animals can make homes. And that's one of the ways that this author uses his knowledge to convey that information. Sometimes beaver dams make the land flood, which can cause problems. The ground can get too soft. Farmers may lose their crops. On the other hand, beaver dams help other animals. Deer look for plants where the beavers have cut down trees. Ducks make nests on top of dams, and so do geese. Now, this is a good place to stop and talk about cause and effect. All right, so as we read this part, we look at the causes of things that happen in order to understand the text better. And we read that beaver dams sometimes make the land flood, which can cause problems. What happened that is a problem? Well, the land flooded. This is an effect, or what happened. What caused the land to flood? The beavers made dams. That's the cause. Some animals carry their homes with them. A snail has a shell on its back. It stays in its shell when the weather is dry. On rainy days, a snail comes out to search for food. What do snails eat? They eat what they find in their habitat. They eat fruits and vegetables. They like to eat from gardens. What about bees? Where do they live? Bees live in a nest called a hive. The hive can be in a tree. Bees make honey. Bees spread pollen from plant to plant. Many plants need bees to survive. We need plants. Hooray for bees. So, if you were to look at page 44 that I just read, what do you think is the main idea or the main topic? It's all about bees, right? What about bees? The details about bees, they live in a hive, they make honey, they spread pollen, and that plants need bees to survive. So lots of facts about bees. So this whole page, the main idea is all about bees. Where do you live? Do you live in the city? Do you live in the country? Have you changed your habitat in a good way? You can pick up trash, help water the flowers, wave hello to a neighbor. Your home is a habitat for you. All right, we have a few more vocabulary words that we need to, there we go. And the first one is den. These foxes live in a den.
Den. A hole in the ground where some wild animals rest or sleep. The mole lives in a den underground. Den.
All right, so a den is a hole in the ground where some animals rest or sleep. And these two pages talk all about, this page definitely talks about all these animals live in den, like foxes and woodchucks, groundhogs, moles, and even prairie dogs. All right, our next word that I want to talk about is water. It gets more water and air.
Water. That which falls as rain, forms lakes and rivers, and is needed by all living things. The lake is made of water. Water.
All right, and I think you all know what water is. Probably the most important thing to take away from that definition of water is that it's needed by all living things. Everything that's alive, plants, animals, humans, we all need water to survive. And the last word is shell. And we're talking about the snail here, and there's its shell. It stays in its shell when the weather is dry.
Shell, a hard outer covering. The turtle has a shell. It protects her. Shell.
All right, so a shell is a hard outer covering that protects the animal. So that's all I have for you for reading today. Lots of vocabulary and lots of information about animal habitats. I thought that this was a very interesting read, but I like to read all about animals.